Buenas noches. Siguiente parada es David Townsend de BODYHEAT. Él va a explicar algo muy innovador. Nadie que yo conozco tiene este tipo de sistema y bueno, voy a darle la palabra para que él comience.
Hi, I'm David Townsend. I'm the CEO at TownRock Energy. We're a geothermal technology company based in Scotland. It's really nice to be here. Thank you to MAYAKI and G for inviting me, and Lloyd. And I'm going to, for the next 30 to 45 minutes, talk to you about the BODYHEAT technology that we've developed and installed at a nightclub in Glasgow in Scotland, which harnesses the power of dance. And this will be an opportunity for you to understand what this technology does, some of the impacts it can have, and also if you have questions about it at the end, we'll have time for questions. So thank you for being here. First, I just want to show you a little video that we made that explains the system and is narrated by one of my favorite actors, a guy who was in Trainspotting, if you know that movie. So you might recognize him. Go for it.
Here in Glasgow, we know how to throw a party. We really know how to throw a party. And at the time, it might seem like we don't care about tomorrow, but we do. And not just the state of our heads the next morning, but the state of our planet the next week, next year, next decade. Let me elaborate. Imagine 2,000 sweaty bodies dancing beneath galvanised steel. Tunes are cranked, sweat's lashing, everybody's gone for it. Now imagine you could bottle that party, store it away, then use it again as energy. Well, using pioneering technology, that's exactly what BODYHEAT does. Using heat pumps and all that sort of thing to transform all of that body heat into energy. Here's how it actually works.
You wanna know how I get away with everything? I work all the time. From Monday to Friday, Friday to Sunday. I love it. I work. So when I say come on, I mean come on. You've got to work with me. Now, I don't wanna see any fake-ass workers. I need real builders. Work it. Work to be a winner. Sweat, work it. Sweat.
Now we've all been there. Down the front, sweat dripping down the walls, dancing till the early hours, never wanting the party to end. Well, now it doesn't need to. Today's parties fuel tomorrow's parties. Let's use the night to save the day.
Thank you. So this concept was one that popped into my head. I would like to say it popped into my head when I was raving at the front of a big electronic dance party, but I wasn't. It was actually having done a lot of raving, having done a lot of dancing and partying, and some of which in the venue where we've built this in Glasgow. I was actually walking around the venue during the day, completely sober, with the owner of this venue, and the thought of implementing a system like this kind of came out of that conversation. And he's a very creative guy and decided that sounded like a cool idea. So 3 years ago, that idea came out of that conversation. And now the system's been operating for over a year. So I have some data that I'll show you a little bit later as part of a slide pack that shows you how the system's been operating for the first year and how we can show how much body heat we've been able to capture and store in the ground. And I'll talk to you about how that all works. So I'm a geologist. I have a team of engineers. We're a small kind of startup company. We work on all sorts of geothermal energy system. And geothermal really just means energy from the ground, energy from the earth. and you can get heat, you can get power, but you can also get cooling. You can store heat in the ground. And there's lots of ways you can use the ground integrated with the built environment, with cities or with industrial facilities or otherwise, to reduce or eliminate the carbon emissions of the energy use of those buildings. So that's something that I really like to explore in lots of different ways. We work on all types of different systems, but this system in particular seemed to grab the attention of the media and the attention of the general public a lot more than much bigger, much more impactful projects from a carbon saving perspective. There'll be big geothermal power plants out there in Iceland and New Zealand that are hundreds of millions of dollars to build them, and they save tens of thousands of tons of CO2 every year, but they don't make the headlines. And our nice little system, the BODYHEAT system in Glasgow, just blew up. So we've had about 350 media hits, some big names, New York Times and the BBC. So I went through the sort of database we have of media this morning, and I found one that was from I believe it's a Catalan news station. So for those of you who are struggling with my English, we'll load that up in a second. I think it went out on live TV here about a year ago, but the clip I've been able to find is on Instagram. So bear with me, it's on a kind of Instagram shot, but you should get a feeling for what it was like.
Una discoteca de Glasgow fa servir la calor que desprèn la gent que hi balla per climatitzar el seu propi local. Sembla que el món s'enfonsa, però sempre hi ha beneficis. Aquesta discoteca és Swag 3. Fa 3 anys que estan treballant en aquest projecte i els ha costat ni més ni menys que 600.000 lliures. Això sí, gran part finançat pel govern escocès. Aquest sistema, que es diu BODYHEAT, funciona de la següent manera. La gent balla, generem calor. Aquesta calor és absorbida per una mena de ventiladors que hi ha al sostre del local i transmesa a través d'un fluid a uns pous que hi ha a 200 metres sota terra. Aquests pous funcionen com a bateries tèrmiques i quan aquella energia es torna a necessitar per climatitzar el local, fan cap a les bombes de calor i refrigeren el local. Gràcies a això hem sapigut que si ens posem a ballar a ritme del Rolling Stone podem generar una energia de fins a 250 watts. Però si per exemple ens n'anem a una sessió de l'Skrillex al Sonar, doncs podem arribar fins als 500 o 600 watts generats per cadascun de nosaltres. Segons els propietaris, aquest sistema els permetrà d'alviar emetre 70 tones de CO2 cada any. I tu, amb quina cançó generaries aquest tipus d'energia?
Thank you. So I don't know what she said, but I hope it's good things. So I also just want to express the kind of excitement for bringing this. This is the first time I've brought this to sort of a music festival, and this festival in particular, I haven't been before, but it looks like it's going to have a lot of energy generated by the looks of the artists that are coming over the next couple of days. It sounds really exciting. So I hope a lot of you are out there cutting a lot of shapes, making a lot of heat. So first, I mean, I'm motivated to try to address climate change, even in small ways. I think this is obviously something that's so important to us. It sometimes gets caught up in the day-to-day media storm of shorter-term political crises or otherwise. But climate change to me is the biggest issue that we face. It feels like an existential crisis for our species that we're very much causing, that we're very much in control of. And it's going to take all of society to kind of galvanize around this, which, the venues that hold music events from a carbon emission perspective is very, very small. It's a very small piece of the puzzle, but it's, I think, really important because it touches so many people and it helps embed in so many people's sort of imagination. If they can associate music and what they enjoy doing with venues with reducing carbon emissions. So trying not to remind people of the stress and fear of climate change, but of the good feelings of just doing a little bit to make a difference. So there's obviously a lot of things venues can do, and what we're working with venues and big venues, permanent, temporary festivals, all sorts of different sizes, is to rethink the way that the buildings are heated and are cooled so that we can eliminate carbon emissions from the mix. And It's something that, you know, we spot incredibly flawed systems in many buildings where you might have a big air conditioning system that is pumping heat out into the atmosphere during a big event. And then, you know, the next morning, there's gas boilers burning to heat the place up again. And then as soon as the people come in, the gas boilers turn off, and then the air conditioning turns on and dumps all that heat back outside again. And it just seems so pointlessly wasteful. And it's happening in offices and malls and everywhere, right? It's not venues in particular, but this is the one we've focused on. This technology has sort of spurned us to try to create a sort of spin-out company that is helping venues in general just think a bit more creatively about how they can reduce their emissions. And this quote from one of our co-founders, Bob, kind of sums up to me why I think, you know, this in particular is important, because we're often told, like, to try to do something good for the planet, you have to stop eating meat, you have to stop flying, you have to drive less, your life has to be more boring, basically. And what instead we're trying to show is that you can have a better life in some aspects and it also be good for the planet. So the technology is BODYHEAT, and BODYHEAT Club is the sort of spin-out company that we've got, that we're just happy to speak to venues and have these creative discussions about what sort of energy they're using, how they're using it, and how that could be done a little bit differently and better. And the example of where we've done it in Glasgow is this venue. It's called SWG3, and this is a big outdoor area they have, and we don't have BODYHEAT installed outside. It doesn't function outside, but this is a brand new graffiti studio that is connected to the system. This was connected just over Christmas. This is the main venue, the galvanizers. This fits 2,000 people. This one fits about 1,000 people on the ground floor, and another nearly 1,000 in another venue upstairs. So they have 3 different venues, some of which will have electronic music, some of which will have big live bands. And there's 6,000 people in total can fit into this venue. And then we have over this side a community garden, which has been recently transformed into a space that people can just come and use during the day from the local community as kind of giving back a little bit, so that they maybe don't complain about the noise so much and they have some benefit from this happening next to them. So before we came and installed the BODYHEAT system, they had a sort of combination of gas that was doing underfloor heating, and hot water was coming directly from electric, and then the cooling was being done with ventilation and also kind of old school air conditioning system that was quite inefficient. And then, so what BODYHEAT does, you saw this in the video, but we have the same kind of cassette units in the ceiling that an air conditioning system might look like, where you're cooling down the air and you're not removing air, you're just cooling it down. That heat is moved into pipes, which move the heat in a sort of refrigerant, in a liquid, out into a shipping container behind the building. In there we have 2 different types of heat pumps that are able to then move heat out of that refrigerant and into a brine loop that then interfaces with 2.5 kilometers of pipes that are installed into 12 200-meter deep boreholes. And that is the way that we take heat from the club and put it into the ground, and then the whole system can obviously be reversed. A little bit of technical information on those things. We need a sort of antifreeze fluid to make sure we have the best thermal properties when we're dumping that heat into the ground, and so we can have quite fast responses. We do obviously need space for that, and that community garden I pointed out is where we found space to put the 12 boreholes. They all are 8 meters apart, and they're in a kind of C shape, so that they're taking a portion of the ground 200 meters down and about 100 meters by 100 meters, and that giant cube of rock and water within the rock then becomes the thermal battery. And so the fact that all of these boreholes are interfacing with that big cube, that volume is a huge battery that we can charge up with heat over many, many years. We can also discharge heat from it for many, many years, but we can do much shorter cycles too. And you'll see that in some of the graphs in a minute. You have two heat pumps in there, and they can do heating and cooling to the two main rooms. And they can also move heat just directly between the rooms and a foyer. And so you might have people coming into the building, you keep that entryway warm with heat that's directly being generated from the crowd, just moving that to the front, and any excess heat then the crowd is generating gets stored. In the summer, of course, we're having a lot more heat generated. In the winter, we're needing a lot more heat, so that's important. So we turned the system on in beginning of September 2022, and this is the first 3 weeks of operation, and you can see how big the party was from this graph. So these spikes are when there was big events happening. This is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday, nothing on Sunday that week. And this shows you the difference in heating as well. So in September, we're still in heating or in cooling mode. It's not needing heating. The crowd is generating a lot of heat, and the difference between these two lines shows you the amount of heat that's being discharged into the ground and charging up that thermal battery, because the red line is the temperature of the fluid going into the ground, and the blue is the temperature coming back out again, and that difference is the heat being left behind. And so we're monitoring this, and we're tweaking it like an instrument, and just adjusting it to make it work better. And it'll take probably the first 2 years of operation to really adjust it to work well. But the learnings that we get from this first system will make the next systems cheaper and more efficient, etc. So it's like the prototype, if you wish. This data I just had one of our engineers put onto this slide last night. So this is the first time this data has been shown to anyone in the public, and it shows the whole first from turn on at the beginning of September 2022 until last week. So what's interesting about this graph is you can see a number of things on it. You can see those spiky points in September, October last year, where we were at quite a nice temperature in Scotland at that point. We didn't need really heating, we didn't need really cooling, but when people are dancing, we need a lot of cooling, and that's causing those spikes, and that's charging up the ground with thermal energy. Then you can see when it got cold. It usually gets cold in November, mid-November. It got very cold in Scotland about 2 weeks ago, so I was very glad to come to Barcelona this week. And this graph here then shows you where heat is being pulled out of the battery and distributed into the venue to keep it warm. And that's, you can see the difference here of the fluid coming out is hotter. So then here, what happened? We actually had to connect the new building. So the new graffiti studio that was next door was finished. We put a heat pump in there, and then we needed to put a pipe in there, and actually to connect it, it took about 6 weeks, and we had to turn the whole system off, so it just flatlined, so nothing happened. So this year, we won't see this flatline. And then you can see when the system gets turned on again, it's coming into spring, and then we don't need heating anymore, and actually it gets into a really big cooling period, and this block here is when we can see the thermal battery getting charged up a lot over the whole summer period. And I'm going to zoom into that a little bit on the next slide. So we can see that since the end of March until today, we have the spring and summer period. You can see the summer in Scotland is very short. But during that period, when people are dancing, we have a lot of big events happening in the summer at this venue. There's a lot of heat being generated and stored, and that would have before just been getting thrown out. But then as we start to enter the cold period in late October and November, we're starting to pull that heat back out of the battery and it cycles again. So it's operating on these short spikes. You can see it's working on a daily and weekly basis, and then you can also see it's working on a whole annual cycle as well. And the benefit of that is the whole system gives you a lot more efficient heating when you need it, more efficient cooling when you need it. So it uses a minimal amount of electricity, much less electricity than an air conditioning system would use. And therefore this system has no carbon emissions because it's all renewable energy coming from the grid to this site. So I think what we're doing right now, we're not sure what shape the Body Heat Club organization might take. We are right now calling it kind of a membership organization, but we're not looking to like charge membership. We just want kind of a community to be built around people that are interested in this type of thing. This is why we liked partnering up with MAYAKI, because they're trying to build more wider community of people in the creative space who are into this kind of thing and also have an inclination towards sustainability. And so this is the website. You can put details in there. You can get in touch, and we can put you in a database. And we're sort of right now just letting the system run and tweaking it. And we have currently no firm plans to put it in any other venues yet. But we are interested to hear from people who might have venues or suggest venues or have connections that might be interested. There have been quite a lot of interest from German venues, but we haven't sort of signed a contract yet, if you wish, to build the next one yet. This is the sort of two organizations that have formed this. So TownRock is my company, and we come with really all the technical expertise, the engineering, the geology. We would help you understand what sort of energy you're using and how creatively that could be done to change your current energy usage into something else. And then SWG3, which is the venue where we've built this, they run their own venue. It's a very big multi-use venue. They have lots of different artists coming through there. They also have it for day conferences. It's an arts hub, is what they call it, more than they don't like being called a nightclub, but they do have a lot of good nighttime events there. And they come with the understanding of the market. They would help market the concept, and they've done a very good job of marketing this system at their site, and so would obviously be able to give advice around that. Thank you. Just a bit on the potential for the marketing of this, and I think the next system could be launched in line with quite a big marketing push, and also probably would be launched in line with us giving some really hard statistics of how well the first system has been running, with a couple years of data to evidence that, which I think is important. And just some of the headlines we had, the one I like the most, I think, was the New York Times, but there was some very silly ones as well. And journalists ask you the most wild questions. One I got asked more than once was, how many iPhones can you charge from the system? And I have to go back to the physics to explain that we're not generating electricity, but people wish. And just a little bit more, some links to some of the press. So basically, really happy for you to get in touch. You can get in touch through the website. You can also look at that video again if you wanted to see the video we showed at the start. And by all means, just come and chat to me afterwards as well. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to have the masterclass next with Umwelt. Si siguen aquí, va el taller con Umwelt de producción.